All right, I'll give everyone a couple of minutes just to kind of hop in. And I wanted to introduce Dabney. I am so excited. Like everyone has heard me kind of geek out about her doing a VTS, a visual thinking strategies workshop. And I don't know. I get so excited I can never explain it well, so I'm gonna let Dabney like do better the explanation. But like it really is sort of an experiential exercise where and I think that's also part of the difficulty of explaining it, but there's so many outcomes that come from it, including sort of the decrease and the attempt at cognitive bias elimination, leadership, stewardship, teamwork, and it's just such a phenomenal experience. And Dabney has done this with major corporations, in all different fields, including the medical, financial, retail. And so it is just such a treat. This is like my Christmas present to be able to have her join our community today. So Dabney, I'm going to allow you to kind of really explain what this is all about, since people are joining out of utter enthusiasm. Um,
Uh, Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, let's see. Let me just get my deck. Sorry, I was just fixing something on my deck. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm so excited. And yeah, happy holidays, right? Happy holiday season. Let's make this fun, this hour together. And thank you, Juliana, for having me. You're a treasure and have taught me so much too. So let's see, we're going to do something called visual thinking strategies today, as Juliana just mentioned. And it's a methodology that came from the museum world and is used across museums, schools, healthcare, and my team and I brought it into the business world. It's been around for 30-ish years. It began at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. And I used to be a museum curator. I'm based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, I should have said. And this is a museum I love, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum here in Boston. And it also happens to be a strong VTS institution. I learned this methodology about 20 years ago when I was still a curator, and I was mostly a curator at university art museums, all here in the United States, like at Wellesley College and Brandeis University and a couple other places. And so I did a lot of teaching and I did a lot of guiding and thinking about how to help people look deeply at art. And over time, I leaned into this method as the most productive, effective, engaging growth opportunity, I would say, for people in a conversation. And I migrated into the business world because I was very inspired by what was happening with the VTS in healthcare. And I don't have a ton of time, or I don't think it's really worth our time to dive into all the research behind VTS, how it was designed and why it was designed the way it is, because I think it's better to experience it. But please know, if you're interested, I can certainly supply some of that information for you, bibliography. There's a bunch of stuff on my website too, if you happen to, think, okay, great, I want to learn a lot more about this. All right, so let's get started. Let me share my screen. Sorry, guys. Okay, slow morning. There are a couple of things to note as we're moving through this VTS workshop. One of them is that VTS is designed to help us all listen really deeply to one another and to sort of gain a little self-awareness about our own thinking. And for that reason, I completely ignore the chat. And I would like you to as well, so that it's a conversation instead of a discussion here and then a written conversation going on alongside. Let's just have one spoken discussion, and hopefully we'll be able to all see one another on our screens as well as look together. Also, I just completely forget to look at the chat, so forgive me. I do encourage you, if you need to step away or something and you want to use it for that, please, that's great. All right, so VTS, it's got a facilitator and a group. Today, I'll be your facilitator or leader, and you'll all be a team or a group together. And we'll talk about corollaries with the work world after. Here are some of the things that we might look for and think about today during this discussion. These are the outcomes that VTS has in the business world and in the healthcare world. I should mention, I co-teach a course at Harvard Medical School called Training the Eye, Improving the Art of Physical Diagnosis. And I'm saying I should mention that because I think it's a really important corollary for a lot of growth needs and opportunities in the business world. Physicians and nurses who are trained in VTS, both as participants and as facilitators in these conversations, gain a lot of different skills from it that are deeply important to their work. And the one that I would call out first is comfort with ambiguity. And this is a mindset and a skill set and also a set of behaviors, actually, that VTS builds. And they're important in healthcare because there's a correlation between a decrease in misdiagnosis or better diagnoses, right? and the ability to navigate uncertainty and stay in ambiguity longer. And by that, I mean also not land too early. So don't stop looking and thinking and asking and attending to the patient, to the data, to your healthcare team. The more you can stay in rigorous inquiry, the better the diagnosis will be. And I have found with my business clients, and some of them are named down here, I'm allowed to talk about them publicly, IDEO and Fidelity and MIT Exec Ed in particular, that this is a really needed and important skill set in our uncertain world. And also when we are hoping to innovate and grow, we need to be able to push past our assumptions. And as Juliana mentioned, learn to mitigate our biases, hear each other better, understand multiple perspectives and hold them as possible at once. There's a whole host of critical thinking skills and behaviors that contribute to this. Psychological safety and empathy are also outcomes of VTS and related to everything I was just describing. And when I say psychological safety, I'm referring to the work of Amy Edmondson, who I admire a lot. She's a researcher at Harvard Business School, but there's a lot of other great work on that if you're interested. I'm just going to shut my door because my husband is whistling. Sorry. I don't want you to hear his impromptu music. Okay, we can return to all of these skill sets as well after we look. So we're going to look at a work of art now together, and I will lead, and you guys, as I mentioned, will look and be the kind of team exploring this piece together. And after we finish, I will lead a reflection on what just happened so we can begin to figure out what this whole VTS thing is after we've done it, all right? And I like to begin that reflection period with two questions, and they are these questions, which I think are very important in the workplace. The first one is, how do other people you work with or you lead experience you as you work together? Not your own perception of yourself, but their actual lived experience of you as a coworker. And I think we could extend this to our clients or our product users too. And then the second question is, how do those people experience themselves when you're working together? Do they experience themselves as people who can speak up, as people who can take risks, can make mistakes? Do they experience themselves as people who need to wait to be told what to do? Important questions for all of us. And so now, as I lead you through a discussion about a work of art, I would like you to apply these questions to me and yourselves after. How did you experience me? I'll ask you, and yourselves during this discussion, and each other and the work of art. So that's where we'll start, and then we'll talk about whatever comes up, whatever questions you may have. One more quick thought on VTS before we start. This is a conversation that the process is, for me as the leader and facilitator, the purpose. So I invite you to explore, think very hard together about this, see what we can find. But I don't have a particular end game in mind, except for that process to occur. Right? So that's my goal as we dive in and begin to learn VTS. All right, everybody ready? Let's take a look. Okay, so here is our work of art for today. The way that we begin a visual thinking strategies discussion is quietly. So let's just take a moment and look, and then we'll begin. All right, so what's going on in this picture? Anyone can start.
Looks like she got caught.
Okay, so Jan, is it Jan? So you immediately found a story. Looks like she got caught. So one of the two seems to be caught in something. And what do you see that makes you say you think that's this kind of narrative moment?
Her eyebrows, her look of concern,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a smug look on the other woman's face.
Okay, let me zoom in a little and we'll look at those. So you honed right in on two figures in the middle of the painting. They're trying to figure out what kind of interaction is this? And for you, this one, you noted her eyebrows look raised to you, and also the other woman for you looks smug. So the being caught and the smugness are sort of, one is read off the other in a way. So wondering what's happening between these two people. Thank you, Jan. What more can we find?
I noticed that the person playing the instrument clearly has pearl necklace, so probably not someone, the owner of wherever they're at. Not
okay.
Yeah, there's a difference in dress, I guess, and what they have. So maybe the look of surprise isn't so much it's like someone that got caught, maybe, but more someone that was just startled.
All right, so Trey, you're looking carefully at what they're wearing and considering what their roles in this household might be. And you mentioned you think maybe the seated woman, she has she has an instrument and seems to be playing it. And you noted her jewelry, and you're wondering maybe this is her house potentially, and that they might have different roles because they're dressed differently. And that makes you wonder about that expression and possibly build another narrative. And what do you see that makes you say, what did you say, interrupted? Sorry, I didn't quite catch that last word.
Correct, interrupted.
Interrupted. Okay, what do you see that makes you say it's a moment of interruption?
Just the fact that the person behind her maybe just walked up to her and startled her as she's.
Okay,
you see the broom in the front too, and it looks like there's a cleaning that's happening while she's playing. So.
All right, so a couple of different activities going on simultaneously, potentially cleaning, the broom and playing the instrument. And for you, this looks like a moment of surprise or interruption. And part of that has to do with she's seated and she's standing. So she may have just entered. So trying to figure out like what the narrative action is. Great. What more can we find?
What I see is a letter being delivered, and the reading of who the letter came from is what is causing the facial expression for both of them.
All right, so Dave, layering in, we've noted the instrument. And I think you're referring to this here in this hand.
Right, it looks like a sealed note or a sealed letter.
Okay,
I don't know if it doesn't appear to be music because it appears to be an envelope. It's got the creases of an envelope.
Okay, thanks, Dave. So very deep, like this detail here and these creases, it looks like an envelope that's sealed. And you were speculating about what might be written on the other side and who the letter's from, and maybe that is the source of this moment that's being captured, and the expressions on their faces. Thanks, Dave. What more can we find? Is it Ami?
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry. I'll go.
how about Omi and then Emmeline? Okay.
Yeah, for me, it seemed incongruous that the woman who is seated with the instrument is clearly dressed much more lavishly than the second woman, who seems to be dressed like a servant or some sort of house help. And it feels like the woman with the instrument was using some sort of a servants area or a room that is used for, you know, or a room that was being cleaned at the moment while she was practicing. So it almost feels like maybe her practicing the instrument is not something that she could do publicly in her own house. And then I too noted that the note in her hand looked like she had maybe the woman in the blue skirt had maybe just delivered that to the woman that was practicing and kind of caught her off guard by it.
Okay. All right. So agreeing that this is a moment of interruption, you were speculating about the whole context too, that they're in a space because of the for you stark difference between their dress, again, that the ornate, this one, like we mentioned the jewelry earlier, and the skirt here versus the blue skirt. This could be household help, this person, and you're reiterating, maybe the owner or the boss of the other person. And those two activities, cleaning and music playing, it's making you wonder, maybe this is a private moment for her. This is the only space that maybe she can do this activity in. And potentially this woman has come in and brought the letter and interrupted that activity. And what do you see that makes you say this space is sort of a space of the, if I'm getting this right, I'm not sure I completely understand, like a space of the cleaner or a different part, maybe not a space she's normally in.
Yeah, so there's a laundry basket on what looks like a laundry basket on the floor, and then there's a broom and a set of like clogs that you would use while maybe, you know, cleaning a floor perhaps. And then it just kind of looks like a storage, like the room is within some sort of a storage closet because of the drapery and the sort of shelf looking thing on the right hand side.
Okay. All right. So all these cleaning implements and your sense of the space and especially this curtain and this area here, it looks like a almost part of it like a closet, or so it doesn't feel like a space she would normally be in to you based on those attributes. And so it seems like the interaction is happening in a kind of private moment. Thank you, Ami. And Emmeline, you had your hand up too. What more can we find?
I guess it wasn't so much about the story. I was just noticing that the difficulty of painting light coming in from the side on black and white tiles for shadows. So I think the first thing that drew my attention was how the scene was laid out and trying to paint the shadows of where we're looking at and where the light was coming from. So I think I recognized it because I think it's one of my favorite artists, but so I didn't notice the story so much as the mechanics of what was happening from a painting perspective.
Yeah, and all kinds of comments are very welcome. Thank you, Emmeline. So you're thinking about this in terms of it's a painting and the way that light and dark are constructed. So the way a sense of a source of light is distributed across this depiction. And you were talking about the difficulty of showing shadows across a black and white floor, and then a strong directionality to the light, and that this looks familiar to you in terms of an artist. And what do you see that makes you say those things about the light and the artist and familiarity?
It seems like that's kind of the iconic look for him, for a painted floor and a light coming in specifically from the left side. I don't think I can think of that many that come from any other direction.
Right.
So it feels very recognizable.
Okay, so it's the directionality of the light, which seems for you, there's this brightness on the left and then the shadows are on the right, which indicates that the light is very strongly directional, and reminds you of other paintings in the way the light is constructed in a space, in a three-dimensional space, in other scenes like this one. Thank you, Emmeline. What more can we find?
So
Juliana.
to piggyback off Emmeline, the way that the light is coming in makes me think that there is a large window to the left hand side, and usually when there's a large window like that, and with those floors, it's like a social area. It looks also like behind the woman that is sitting, it's like a mantelpiece. I don't know if that is a fireplace, and then there are paintings, usually which indicate, a place, and they're being hung. They're not on the floor, so that makes me think that that is a social area. And then to Ami's comment, where there is sort of what looks like to be a storage area that leads into a social area, but here. But for me, what I think is interesting is actually the sheet of music in that space, which almost like the sheet of music, yeah, in the storage area, and then the way that the body composition between the two women, one, of different classes, seems rather familial. So it almost makes me think that like they're in cahoots together. Um, as like I don't know if someone is holding someone's secret as she's playing, or if the letter is being sent out for whatever reason. There seems to be a lot of familiarity between sort of this social and working class.
Okay, great. Thanks, Juliana. So you're specifying, you're seeing two distinct spaces in
Yes.
this painting. And some of it has to do with that the sort of thinking about light and what we can't see that could be the source of the light, like a large window. You noted the paintings, the mantle, and you're thinking this is this is one space that in here that they're sitting in, and then there's a separate space that's more closet-like, you agree, or some sort of storage space. And they're not in they're not in the same room. So there are two distinct spaces with very different characteristics.
Yeah, like even the way that the door, or it looks like a sliding door on this side. I don't know if it's like an angular, but it's all messed up and banged up. So I'm assuming it's kind of, I don't know how it would close, but it like there's a definite difference of decoration inside of this sort of what I'm assuming to be a storage area, and then the outside of what people can see,
Okay.
of a social area.
So this is messy here, and you're struggling to figure out how if there's a door and how it would close, but there a strong sort of contrast between this space here and the other space deeper inside that parallels a contrast between the two figures. We've been talking about their different clothing, their different potential roles in this household of like servant and owner of the house and boss, if you will. But at the same time, you're like, they seem really almost familial, kind of intimate, which sounded like kind of surprises you given these other contrasts and this sort of bifurcation of these spaces and these roles. And what do you see that makes you say that they seem to be familial or have this familiarity, maybe?
Well, the woman who is, I'm going to use class structures, like who seems to be like of a lower class structure, is just looking at her like, what you up to? Like, it's just like it seems to, and there isn't a deference to the woman who is sitting down, and the woman is, and also there's that the hierarchy of their positioning, right? Like one is standing and one is sitting, and the woman who is sitting is like, it's like I don't know what she's thinking, but and then also it's, if you think about, or if I think about the spaces, right? So we have all of this, what did you call them, like cleaning instruments in the social space, but then we have the music in the workspace, right? So there's this cross of belongings in the spatial structures.
Okay, so they're very close together, and their postures and expressions are a big part of the familiarity or the kind of breakdown of roles that you've been describing a little bit. And you even put your own hand on your hip, like for someone of the lower class who works for somebody else to stand like that, is interesting, right, for you, because it's like, well, that seems unusual. It seems to indicate that they have a secret or some sort of special conversation going on. I think you said that earlier. And as well as the seated position, the literal compositional difference that she's higher up than her in the picture. And then this kind of trade where you see some things you would associate with the wealthier looking woman in the storage like cleaning area kind of space, and then some things that would go alongside the servant figure woman in the fancier social space. So it's like their spaces are sort of leading into one another, if in that understanding. Thank you, Juliana. What more can we find?
I would
Let me give it a try. Oh, go ahead.
Oh.
Mark.
Come and then Mark. Okay, I saw you both lit up at the same time. So is it Cam or Com?
Calm.
Com.
They look really familiar. I don't know if they could be sisters. So I feel like maybe they are dressed up in the clothes that they're cleaning. Because I can't tell if the servant has a dress that's hanging down off her hips or not. And like maybe she had a blue dress on and it's half off, and she's wearing the golden dress, and it's almost like, hey, what are you doing? I thought we were cleaning or something, and she's kind of off goofing around, kind of caught her. Because there's like shoes further down, like it seems like there's clothing, like I think those are shoes, and I'm not sure what that blue other piece is there. That's maybe it goes with the blue dress. So just kind of thinking out of the box, but it's kind of almost like, hey, we're both working, or we're both sisters here. Kind of caught you playing music, like you're not working.
Okay, so Com, you're speculating this could be almost role play and dress up in and maybe, and I think I'm understanding that they might both be, if the first of all, literally related, like sisters, and maybe of the same class, and that they're putting on clothes that don't belong to them and playing instruments and sort of escaping from work for a bit. And you noted that there are these shoes that someone's taken off, which kind of leads you to think about that, or maybe the fold in this blue dress. And what do you see that makes you say they could be sisters?
I feel like that's the type of look you would give each, like like maybe that's the older sister looking down at the younger sister. Like you kind of give that look to each other when you catch them doing stuff that. That's why, like, I feel like if it's that expression makes more sense than someone with a different class. But it does work too if it's a surprise with someone in a different class. But I feel like they wouldn't be surprised. Like they both know that they're in that space. And
okay.
Yeah.
So trying to
and even if you're looking at the cheeks, and they just look very similar too, like kind of almost like twins.
Okay. All right. So Com, a couple things. We've been thinking about this interaction. We were talking about that a lot earlier. What's going on here with the instrument letter and this moment in time? And for you, there's such a familiarity and intimacy in this exchange of glances that we've characterized in a lot of different ways, that it might boil down to being related. And knowing each other that well. And this feels like an older sibling and younger sibling kind of attitude to you, or response to one another. So you're trying to sort of sort through that. And you think there's some visual similarities in their cheeks too.
But in the white cloth clothing, that I'm not sure how covering the hair of the women in the golden dress.
Okay.
Like I'm not sure if that's a fancier way of wearing hair, or is that very casual?
Okay. So trying to look at the different styles and things too, and see what's paralleled between them and what's different, and what kind of moment might it be. Thank you. Mark, I think you were next. What more can we find?
So I would say that one, we're looking at natural lighting. And so this is probably morning time. And then with the envelope, it was, envelopes typically get delivered, mail at least gets delivered like morning, like midday. And I'd also agree with, I think Juliana said it, like they're on the same team, essentially. They're figuring something out. She's providing information to her. And I'd also agree that, yes, that is a sheet of music there, but what I'm not clear on is whether or not we're looking through a hallway into this other room, or if we're looking into a mirror that's reflecting everything that's coming back at us, because that changes just a little bit of just the context of the room. But I would also say that Miss High Status Lady here, she is probably the head of this household, because again, clothing, music, sheet music, but who will say is dressed as like lower status, like she is the authority in this particular area of the house, which would help to explain just the position that she's standing in. They're also familiar with each other. But then the other clue as to this being like part of a bigger, more high status house is the pattern that's behind both of them. That's a very rich pattern. That's art in addition to the pieces of artwork that's above them. This isn't a lower status household with those three pieces of context there.
Thank you, Mark. So you're thinking about a couple of things: power and status, and power in terms of this in this moment in time between these two women. And you agree with an earlier strand of thinking that this could be the owner of this house, or the person in charge who owns and lives in this home, because of the clothing and the musical instrument and the things we've been describing about her. And this could be the servant. But in this moment in time, this standing figure is carrying a lot of authority in this particular moment and in this space. And you were speculating, maybe this is a space where she does carry authority. And so a kind of inversion of the hierarchy of class or cultural roles in this particular narrative moment. You also were wondering, you pointed out these two spaces we were talking about earlier. You sort of talked about us and where we are as viewers, that we're back here in this other space looking in, or maybe this is a coherent space with a mirror in it, and we're looking at a reflection of another space. And what do you see that makes you say this could be a mirror or a door, either way?
It's a little hard to tell, because depending on the angle of the lighting, if it were a mirror that were framed, if the angle of light is coming in from, like, say 45 degrees, then that would help to explain why the left side of the frame of the mirror looks like a little bit wider versus like the right side of it being thinner.
Okay, so you're looking at these two lines here, right? These areas, and trying to sort through, and it's tough, and you're puzzling over it. Like, is it a door? Is it a mirror? And part of the reasoning either way has to do with the difference between the way the line is laid out here and the way it's laid out here, and you're kind of pondering lighting angles, and you also mentioned relative to the light that a time of day, that this feels like morning light to you. We were talking about a possible window and the strong directionality of the light, and you were thinking about when mail gets delivered. So kind of thinking, okay, morning or late morning. You're speculating about time of day as well.
There's also, if it were a door frames tend to show up in light like a little bit more, and so I believe it would be a little bit more pronounced, which is where it's like, okay, maybe that's like a thin window frame. Mirror frame. Mirror frame.
Okay. So part of so these lines, or this shape, is kind of acting and not acting like a door, and acting and not acting like a mirror in different ways, and not exactly clear, but changes for you if you think of it as a reflection versus something you're looking through into another space. Thank you. What more can we find? Maybe one or two more before we have to stop.
I think there's an element of secrecy.
Go ahead, Spencer.
Sorry.
Well, you guys can, Spencer, and then Itai, is that okay? Spencer.
So I think there's definitely some secrecy that's going on here. There's kind of a transactional nature of this to me. So I don't think that the woman in blue brought the letter. I actually see it the other way around. I think the woman in yellow is actually like sneaking the letter to the other woman. The face to me is she's happy because she's about to get this information or this letter. Like, you can imagine it's like a love letter or something from someone that she's not supposed to communicate with. And the woman in yellow's face to me looks more like she's taking a risk. So that's what makes me think that she's the one that's actually brought the letter. The lessons or the music to me could be like a cover for like the speeding, right? It's like a reason for them to get together, spend time. A lot of the things other people have said also, but I think those are the additions of what I've.
Okay, thanks, Spencer. So you're speaking about a couple things. We've been wondering about this relationship and this intimacy, and a little bit about this kind of reversal of hierarchy that some people are finding, or how power or authority is carried in this relationship. And for you, there's, tell me if I'm wrong, I think sort of a vulnerability here. Like it could be the reverse, like maybe the letter's not coming from blue to yellow, but yellow is trusting and taking a risk and giving a letter to the servant. And the servant figure is kind of aware of that and the power that comes with that. You mentioned a sort of transactional relationship potentially, and that could account for some of these dynamics and differences between what we would expect of their status and roles and what we're seeing in this moment in time. And then you also thought about the music and the references to music. Potentially, it's sort of an excuse for this action to happen. So there's a narrative of secrecy for you, or something secret. And what do you see that makes you say secret to that? You mentioned the music. I'm just curious.
Yeah, we talked about point of view a little bit, and I've thought a lot about that. And regardless of if you're in the same room or not, I think the perspective makes you feel like you're sort of this, almost like a peeping Tom or something, right? You're kind of in this perspective of like, I'm hiding in a closet or whatever, and I'm like watching this. So it could be giving you that feeling. It could even be a person that's like watching this happen or trying to spy on this to like catch them having this interaction they're not supposed to have. But regardless of, I guess, to me, it's not as important what it is. It's just that it gives me this feeling that it's like a secret transaction and somebody's either observing it or like spying on it, or it's happening in some kind of like closed, like off limits place.
All right, thanks, Spencer. So we've been talking a lot about these two very distinct spaces, or reflection versus a room we could be in, and you're sort of thinking about your own experience of that as a viewer, where you're literally placed in relationship to the scene, and it seems to put you in a position of peeping, or like a voyeur, or seeing something maybe you're not supposed to see. So that construction of the scene seems intentional, and to heighten a sense of secrecy, or that you're almost invading their privacy, being able to see what you're seeing. Thank you. What more can we find? It's Hai. I think, am I saying your name right? Could you?
Yes. Yes. So yeah, actually, and I want to kind of add on to what Spencer was saying. You know, how this rich scene is framed by this tattered, you know, kind of messy storage area, I think it's a big part of the story. It's actually, I would say it's probably the most important part of the story, you know, where highlighting kind of the richness of, you know, the background of the paintings is supposed to be the background. So then, you know, you kind of see like the messiness that Juliana mentioned, also kind of like the drape where it's kind of like hung to the side. So that resonates with me, Spencer, but it's like it's a point of view. It's like it's somebody looking in. So then when I think about, and I think Dabney mentioned kind of this, the servant has the authority. I don't think she's alone. I think that, you know, like the story around why this view has come to be has something to do with the mood. You know, maybe it's another servant looking in, you know, from a servant's area into this interesting interaction, which, you know, which makes this more of a stolen moment, you know, a peeping Tom stolen moment. So that's what I liked to fixate on. Okay, so Itai, you're pointing out there's a lot of the painting is actually taken up with this. It's very intentional. Other space, and so it really heightens the sense of you as a viewer, and your distance and your access to this thing that's happening, and an implied other kind of character or figure that's not pictured but maybe implied by this kind of compositional arrangement, like another servant or somebody else who is witnessing or has access to what we've been calling a secret or a private moment or this transaction or interaction, whatever it is. And so for you, that curtain pulled back and the contrast between the dirty and messiness here and then the more ornate interior is heightening the sense of a contrast between the viewer and the scene itself. It's sort of upping the ante on the drama of that for you. Am I getting that right? Yeah. Okay, great. Oh, thank you all so much. That was really, really fun. I've looked at this painting so many times and I saw new things because of you. So I appreciate that. All right, so that's visual thinking strategies. Okay, that's the methodology. So let's return to those two questions I brought up earlier and ponder those for a minute. How did you experience me as your facilitator or leader, yourself and each other?
during that conversation. Jan.
You were super soft and accepting, and you didn't have an agenda.
All right. So I was soft and accepting. What did you experience that makes you say, and agendaless? What did I do that makes you say that?
If you repeated using our words, and if you didn't understand our words, you asked about them.
Okay.
So you didn't invent any new words or reframe with new words or restate in other words. So you kept, that's an interesting discipline. One I'm not so good at, but that's great. So
it is a discipline. In fact, yeah, it's designed into this methodology and takes some training. So I had a disciplined, careful, consistent response. And in VTS, we call it paraphrasing, where I would try to capture what you were saying and give it back without altering your ideas, and without judging anything that you're saying, which I think is another component of what you're describing. Thanks, Jan. What more can you tell me? How did you experience me or yourself, each other? Yes, Ami. Me. Sorry.
So for me, it was a very like I experienced you as very non-judgmental, like you were not making any kind of judgments on anything that was said. And even when you were asking for clarification questions, like what makes you say that, or what did you see that caused you to do that, it was in a very non-threatening way, like you were seeking further clarification versus passing judgment on anybody's opinion.
Great, thank you. That's part of psychological safety, what you were just describing, and it's designed into this methodology as well. So the idea is we don't judge, we don't need to, right? We need to listen deeply and try to understand. And instead of judging, we simply ask, well, what do you see that makes you say that? So that we can surface evidence and other kinds of thinking and deepen thinking for everyone, so everyone can consider the new perspective on offer and root it back in the painting or the business stimulus, because we can use VTS for lots of stuff. So thanks for that. I'm glad you experienced that. Even more? Yes, Susan.
Well, the process, and I did see the psychological safety, allowing people to speak up and maybe be wrong, quote, wrong, that the more that you went with it, the more safe I felt to be able to share my ideas, because I knew there wasn't going to be a judgment about it. And you could see every perspective, and you seeing every perspective helped open up for me to see all of the different perspectives as well.
Great. That's also intentional, and I'm so glad you experienced that. I hope other people did as well, that we can access other perspectives and hold multiple perspectives or ideas or ways of making meaning as possible simultaneously. And that happens because I don't judge and I don't intervene, yet I'm rigorous and consistent. So, and I also gave you guys a lot of time so that we could surface a lot of different perspectives. I think we looked at that for about 25 minutes. And we could have gone longer. And by the way, I will send this painting to Juliana to share with all of you. Okay, so you can keep looking because we just got started, really. Thanks, Susan. What more?
Dabney, since I have experienced this several times and I've experienced you as a facilitator several times, the thing that comes up for me is the consistency, right? Of like my experience of the consistency makes me advocate the experience itself, right? Even though I still have trouble explaining exactly how it is, right? But I'm such an advocate of the experience due to my own positive impact and the consistency with you as a facilitator.
Thank you. Well, what you're pointing to, Juliana, is partly that it's me doing it. And, you know, I'm good. I've been doing this for 20 years. It's actually kind of hard. Everybody, like, I make it seem really easy because I love it and I've worked hard at it. But it's completely learnable. right? It's a set of rules. It's a kind of systematized way, a rigorous armature to create as open a conversation as possible. Right? So it sort of carries the paradox that you need a facilitator holding the space in a particular way for people to really think and be creative and let their minds change, let go of their first thoughts and move on to others because of deeper thinking, or build on a first thought in evidence-based ways and be nuanced. All of that comes through the structure of VTS, which is learnable, in which most people can learn and create. And that's one of the things I love about it, that it's not about anyone's personal charisma, for example, but about a consistent way of structuring discussion. And actually, on that note, because we're at 12:47, I'm gonna share with you that structure quickly if everybody's game, and then we'll have an open question time. So we sort of quickly run through these are the super basic components of VTS. When I'm teaching, there's a lot more to it, but this will give you the sense of that design. So first I picked the painting and I tried to understand the kind of group from Juliana, and I know that we will do this once, but part of VTS is thinking through, who do I need to look with, and what should we look at right now, and how often should my team do this, and how do we create outcomes from it, and all that stuff. But in the simplest way, once you have your group and your stimulus, which for us was this work of art, you're quiet. You let everybody think, because you trust and believe in your group, and you know they're going to have intelligent responses, and you don't need to direct them and tell them what to think or where to look. They all have eyes and wonderful minds, and you give them time to land. Very important. It's not VTS if you don't start with silence. And then I only asked you 3 questions throughout that 25 minutes. I don't know if anybody noticed that. The first question is, what's going on in this picture? And I don't have time today to dig into the precise wording of the questions, but it doesn't change. They were researched over took about almost a decade for the methodology to take the form that it's in now. And these questions were played with and iterated and researched and refined. So we stick with them. And that's signaling, this is open. Your responsibility to find your way, and I'm right here with you. Instead of saying, okay, I'd like you to think about light, for example. You trust that all kinds of topics and ideas are going to come up. The second question, which some of you just mentioned in the reflection, is, what do you see that makes you say that? And if you take one thing from this hour, this question is the most useful, probably. And also very carefully worded. And you can switch out the C verb when you're looking at things for, what are you reading that makes you say that? What have you experienced that makes you say that? This is the question that probes the person, that reroutes their thinking and what we're all looking at or thinking about or reading. And asks not, why do you think that, for example, but what do you see right now that makes you say right now what you're saying, so that I can understand you better, and then give it back to the group so that we can all understand you better. And even so you might understand your own thinking yourself a little better. Being probed and prompted to think more deeply is really rich. And this is where part of that moving past assumptions, mitigating bias comes in. Super important question. It's also amazing to hear what people say, because they say incredible things. The third question in VTS is very simple and also carefully worded, though. What more can we find? This is like the punctuation. Let's go back to the group. What more can we find? And it's a we. And we don't say, interestingly, what else? Because it turns out that what else signals to a group, oh, there's something she wants to hear from me that I haven't said yet. So I better figure out what that is. Right? What more is a signal. This is additive. This has been great, but I don't think you're done. Let's keep going. Let's stay in inquiry. Let's hear more voices. And this is part of that comfort with ambiguity piece too. It's really good at helping with that. And there's a deep kind of listening in VTS that the facilitator is both doing and enacting and also modeling and creating for other people. we have a singular goal in our listening. It's way more complicated than this, but in this kind of like 1 hour, we just want to understand what the person's saying. And that is very different kind of listening than we're often involved in. Often we are thinking of our answer as we're listening, or we're thinking of our question. And I don't want to say that that's bad. It can be great sometimes. There are all different kinds of conversations that make a workflow, right? But when you really need to hear from a team, from each other, and you need some space and you need to be really deep, try to listen to understand before you offer your opinion, and model that listening. And the reason the facilitator is listening so deeply in VTS is to do what also was pointed out during the reflection, because you got to paraphrase. And giving a thought back to a group, hopefully in slightly different language, but without changing it, using conditional language, linking it to earlier ideas, framing the kind of thinking that's happening, that's very cognitively rich and demanding, very demanding. And it really is the motor of the conversation in a lot of ways. And so you have to listen really deeply in order to paraphrase well. And then the whole time, as a couple of you mentioned, you need to suspend judgment. Judgment is happening. If any of you have ever done mindfulness training or meditation, there's all this stuff coming in, but you just sort of set it over here because your perspective, your opinions aren't relevant. You have taken the role of enabling a group to explore something really deeply and hear each other. And so you need to take responsibility for that role and not, in your position of power, inflect the conversation. You use your authority as a leader to seek evidence, to help everyone hear everyone else, and to keep people looking and deepen this discussion and broaden it too. And finally, in VTS, we don't stop early. We keep going. And so I have an illustration of this. I recorded a discussion about this painting, which I've used a lot, with 7 people. Juliana, this was in New York. I'm trying to remember if you were there. This was years ago.
No, not this one.
So I gave each of them a different color, and I tried to draw their conversation across over the time period. And so here's the 7 minutes in. 5 people have talked. They've looked at a couple parts of the painting multiple times. They've moved around. They've started to build consensus around one interpretation, which I tried to draw with just a straight line. And this is when a lot of teams or meetings would stop because everybody would feel like, all right, we've done enough here. Let's move on. But we don't move on in VTS. We keep going. And this is the conversation after 25 minutes. Everybody has spoken a couple of times. We understand each other much better. We understand this painting is considered a masterpiece of American 19th century art. So it has a lot of depth. There's a lot to find there. 7 minutes, you barely know the painting. So we've accrued knowledge. We've developed many lenses on this, lots of different kinds of thinking, and everybody has moved past their initial assumptions about what was there. And we have a lot of big ideas that interrelate. So this kind of development in a relatively short amount of time is what a lot of my clients find extremely valuable about VTS, that they can structure a conversation that's shockingly efficient. It feels messy. It feels like you're not landing, but you're finding so much in the process. And I like to call that going slow to go fast. And I'm sure you guys know, many of you have a bias toward action, which many of us do. And so I invite you to reframe thinking about action as thinking. We were doing work, right? And one more, sorry, we're almost at the end. So one more slide. These are examples of things that people use VTS on. Patience, strategic plans, prototypes, apps, data, all kinds of data, all kinds of designs, briefs, written text. So it works in lots of different moments of workflow and different contexts.